Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. This is the episode that we feared was coming from probably about November last year and has finally happened. The Clarets will be playing their football next year in the Championship following their relegation from the Premier League. They failed to beat Spurs away on Saturday, which is what was expected, really. It was a tall ask for the Clarets, who have been pretty much struggling and in the relegation zone for most of the season. Where does this leave our club? How do we assess what's gone wrong this season? Well, we're going to do that over a few podcasts because there's a lot of talking points. But this week, we're going to just concentrate on immediate reaction to that relegation, feedback from Saturday's game down at Spurs. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Tom and Rich. The A-team are here. They're going to give us your thoughts. So let's get this over with, listeners. Let's go. Gentlemen, welcome to the relegation party. We knew it's been coming and it's finally here. How are we feeling?
Oh, Natty, it doesn't feel as bad as the last one, I don't think. I think just because we've known it's coming for so long, to be honest. And I know a few people did get a bit, not carried away, but I know you were kind of holding out hope a lot longer than I was. I wasn't really ever expecting us to get out of it. So, obviously it doesn't feel good, but it's definitely not as gutting as it was last time, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a good point, is that, Rich, doesn't it? I definitely feel different. Like when we got relegated 2 years ago, the end of the Dyche year, everything just felt sad, didn't it? We'd lost Dyche, it was an end of an era, we didn't know what was happening, there was an uncertainty about the Championship. I don't feel the same level of sadness this time, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think this because this relegation has just been fully deserved. I think even if we stayed up, it would have just been because of points deductions. Let's be honest, the writing's been on the wall for a hell of a long time. Could probably look back to November. I remember doing something for BBC, and that was in like January, I think, ahead of the Luton game, saying we're pretty much going down. So we've kind of been like a dog with three legs, just limping forward, holding on a little bit, and eventually, our legs have been taken away from us, and we're going down. Unfortunately, that's a weird analogy, but there we go.
Listen, we'll stay with it, Rich. Don't worry. Well, we're going to come back onto the wider things of the season anyway. Let's start at that game at the weekend. We knew it was going to be a difficult ask. We'd given ourselves a little bit of an opportunity to win, to stay up. It was always going to be a very difficult thing to do, but we needed to beat Spurs, and our record, as those of you who listened to the preview show, away at Spurs wasn't great. We did score first, and it lasted all of 7 minutes, but Tom, it was a bright start for the Clarets, and I genuinely felt when they first came out that they looked like they were going to have some intention to really go out for the win here, and it was a really bright start, as we've seen many times in this latter stage of this season.
Yeah, we came close before with the header from Vitinha. That was a good move. It was a decent save from the keeper. Obviously got the goal. I think the game plan was to try and keep it tight and hit them on the counter attack, and it's probably a bit more of a realistic game plan than we've had in a lot of games against these kind of teams this season. Particularly if we'd have done that a few more times at home, we might be sitting there with a few more points on the board. But yeah, I don't think you can really fault the performance in isolation. Obviously, when it's a game you have to win, you can't really go to Tottenham away and come out all guns blazing for 90 minutes. But I think you're right, especially in the first half. I think we created a lot. We moved the ball well through the thirds. They were kind of similar to Man United in that the midfield was a little bit easy to bypass.
Yeah.
They obviously had Oliver Skip on the left, playing left back. Sorry, not even on the left hand side. So it was a bit of a weakness that we could look to exploit, and that obviously did work with the goal. The majority of the time when we're playing it out from the back, I think Muric really struggled again. I don't know what's happened the last few weeks, but his passing out from the back has got actually worse. But the one decent kind of move that we had flowing through from the back showed what we can do when we're at our best. It was a good ball into Spurs, and it was, I think the majority of the times when we seem to be playing it out from the back, it's going to people who are marked. But Spurs just did have enough room just to turn. He did really, really well, gave his marker a slip, rode the tackle, and the ball through to Brun Larsen was good. And took it well. And yeah, you were thinking at that point, there is a chance here if we can get to half time. Just let's just be sensible now and batten down the hatches. And unfortunately, as you say, it was only for a few minutes that we had that lead, and battening down the hatches isn't really something that this team's capable of, I don't think, unfortunately.
No, it isn't. Rich, one of the comments that you said at the time when we were looking at the game is that it's been a consistent problem all season, in that we don't have. We're just so easy for attackers to just walk through and just carve us open and just pull the ball in the back of the net, and that happened again on the weekend. It was a great goal, but we just made it so easy for them.
Yeah, I think it's just been a pattern of our season, how easy teams exploit us. I suppose it's the modern way, isn't it? That fullbacks like to go high, and you're seeing that with the goals. Taylor went a bit higher, so Vitinho was high up the pitch. There's a massive gap down the left hand side, down our left hand side. Sorry, that Porro just basically just ran forward through. Maybe questions of Muric. He was kind of beaten at his near post, but I think that's harsh. And O'Shea's got a decision to make. Does he stay with his runner? Does he go to Pedro Porro? If we're being harsh, you can maybe say that Porro was the main danger in that situation, so go and close him down. And unfortunately, it was a bit too late. And it was 1-1, and we just lack a little bit of gamesmanship, don't we? When we go 1-0 up, it's a warm day. Like I said, I think Tom got some rosy cheeks from being in the terraces that day as well.
He's glowing.
Yeah, he's glowing, literally. If anyone's watching it on YouTube, it's the same colour as his shirt.
He is. He's very, very coordinated with shirts on walls and on bodies.
It's like kind of like slow the game down. Just before that goal, we were like trying to take a quick free kick, and there's just a lot of naivety to the way we play. And I think sometimes we go out all guns blazing, and then we're so fatigued. The amount of goals we concede late on in halves, because I think we do get fatigued. And then second half, unfortunately, we just never managed to get hold of the ball, and the writing was on the wall for that second goal coming. There was a lot of warning signs before. Muric, to be fair to him, made some fantastic saves in the second half and kept us in the game in the second half. But we were never really an attacking threat. When you're in the game at 1-1, you kind of think you never know. But yeah, like I said, I think I put a tweet out and I said the way we've been set up defensively this season from game one, we've not even given ourselves a chance.
No.
And I'm sure that's something we're going to review. We are defensively so poor.
Yeah. We're going to look in the summer, our podcast of the summer, we're going to do a season review. We're going to look technically into some of these areas in each of the three zones, from defence through midfield through our attacking options, and just see, what lessons need to be learned. Tom, sticking with that, particularly with the strategy and the defensive mind and the gamesmanship in game. I had some really useful commentary from a good friend of mine who's a Spurs fan who is at the game as well. And I think a couple of things that he picked up on, one of these was basically doing your homework and being able to take advantage of weaknesses in a side. I don't think we've done this at any point this season. We have just had this tunnel vision where we have got our strategy, we've got our plan, and Vincent Kompany's got this image of this perfect system, and it's almost like he's got his head down and going, well, if only the players can just learn how to do this system, then we'll be all right. And he's never really got his head up and gone, oh, maybe this system isn't working, or maybe the players can't do this, so we need to do something else. One of the examples from the weekend, he'd said to me that Spurs have lost 4 games in a row, and one of the problems that they're facing defensively, and they really want to look at in the summer, is that they have a real weakness at set pieces because they play a very simple zonal marking scheme. We got a corner. All the attackers just set up in a really static position in the box so that the Spurs defence could literally just play man to man. There's no one on the keeper at all, and then the corner that comes is an outswinger. And it's like, as a fan, it's genuinely incredible that we've not been able to just look at basic frailties within our opposition and change our system to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's an obvious weak point of Spurs that the keeper's really poor with set pieces, and we've seen obviously Trafford get targeted for it from our end. I think the second half we did come a bit closer with a couple. There was one where they found O'Shea at the back post and he just didn't quite get his header right, and then another one where Stev just hit the top of the net. But you're right, we didn't take enough advantage. We weren't lucky enough to win the set pieces as well, maybe you could say. The one that out to me in terms of not taking advantage of the opposition's weakness, mentioned it already, Oliver Skip playing left back, and you've got Vitinho up against him for a lot of the game, and we've done it to death. Vitinho isn't a winger. We signed 8 wingers in the summer, and we've ended up playing a centre forward and a right back there for the last 2 months.
It's honestly ridiculous.
It doesn't really make sense to me. Obviously, Benson's never really had a chance. He hasn't been given any starts this season, or maybe one. I can understand why he doesn't start him necessarily, because obviously in the Championship he was more of an impact player off the bench. But he got on for the last 20 minutes on Saturday, and it just leaves you thinking, why is he considered the man to come on when we need to win this last game?
Yeah, and he's not been good enough all season. That was literally my next question, Tom, so stick with this. We don't make a substitution for 72 minutes, even though we need to win the game or we're down. Benson's been deemed not good enough for the Premier League, has not featured at all, and he's the one to bring on and given 18 minutes to save our season. It's like, what? It makes no sense to me, Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. And then a couple of minutes later, you've got Trezor on the other wing, and it's been the same with him. He's barely been trusted this season. Yeah, I don't understand it. You've got Goodmanson on the bench. I would have started with Goodmanson probably. I think, yeah, it's just a waste having Vitinho playing there. And, again, I don't want to slag him off because he works hard. He's a grafter. I think he comes out of the season with a lot more credit than a lot of the players, to be honest. Better players than him as well. But that is an opportunity missed to me to be attacking them down that flank. And we were in the pub before, and a Spurs fan said to us, "Oh, have you got a good right winger playing today?" And we said, "Well, no, it's a right back there." And he went, "Oh, that's good because we've got Skip at left back." And it's that we've said it all season, things that seem pretty obvious to fans that seem to pass Kompany by. And obviously Benson not getting the minutes is another one. Yeah, I'd love to give you an answer as to what you were thinking there, bringing him on when he hasn't all season, but I honestly don't understand it at all. And
no, I don't.
I thought he did all right as well when he came on it.
Yeah.
I kind of understand leaving this so late, because I think the game plan was be in the game until the last 10, 15 minutes and then try and make a goal. I think that was the idea of bringing him on then.
That's a risky strategy, Tom.
It is, but then I think it's probably riskier to be playing all out attacking at Spurs for 90 minutes, to be fair. So I wouldn't follow him there. And I think that kind of performance, the way we played in that performance level, if we'd have had that for more of the season, we wouldn't be in this situation. I thought it was more realistic tactics. If we'd have played like that for Spurs at home, even if we'd have played like that at home to Newcastle last week, we would have had more chance of getting something from the game. And we criticise him for not learning, so I think probably credit for that game plan. I think that was more sensible, but as you say, it's come too late, and that thing with the personnel is just a bit weird to me. I don't really understand why suddenly Benson and Trezor are the people that you bring on when you need a win, because there's other games this season where we needed to win. I know he came on against Wolves at home, Benson, but Brighton at home, you didn't see him there. How many games have we dropped 2 points in this season and he's not got anywhere near it?
Yeah, and they're not sharp. They're not match fit. They've not played with these players. They're not on it at all. Rich, in terms of the playing style as well, has there been sufficient urgency in this team in this latter part of the season, this last 8 to 10 games or so, where we've been trying to survive? Another example that we were given this week, that there was a almost bizarre situation where Muric kind of had his last warning from the referee, like, stop time wasting, at a time where we weren't winning in a game that we needed to win. And we have seen that a lot this season, where Tom always says it in our group, why make 2 passes when 45 will do? And I wonder whether you've seen enough of an increase in intensity and a drive in those games to do better. Is that a problem?
I think, if anything, the Newcastle game, I might sound daft here, I think there was too much intensity. I think we just went out completely with yeah, it looked great the first 10, 15 minutes against Newcastle when we were pressing them and we nearly scored. But then as soon as Newcastle counter-attacked us, we was 1-0 down. And I think Tom was right what he was saying against Tottenham. You know, you can't go all out attacking against these teams because we just get killed. I think we have played better in the last 10 games or so. But for me, the Newcastle at home game just resurfaced everything that was going on earlier in the season. Away from home, for me, we're set up a lot better. We are a little bit more pragmatic.
Yeah.
We do look to play in the counter-attack. I think we are a bit more compact. But then when we play the better sides at home, we just get completely picked off because we try and go and press really high up the pitch. You know, we're defending on the halfway line at home against these better sides. And as soon as they beat that press, which they're inevitably going to be at times, we just get caught out. To me, it depends what game you look at. There's certain games where you look at like Everton away, Crystal Palace at home, when we go 1-0 down and teams sit in a shape, we do struggle to break them down. But then there's other times when we'll just go like completely gung-ho. I think my issue has been this season, we've just had a plan A and there's been absolutely zero plan B.
Yeah.
There's been no other way to try and win a game. You know, the substitutions that have largely been made this season from an attacking point of view anyway, have been like for like. It's been a winger off, a winger on. There's no, you know, do we go for, you know, Foster was clearly, absolutely, he's not looked fully fit to me, Foster, recently. He was absolutely knackered. And he played 90 minutes. He should have been off after an hour. I'm not keen on Fofana. I don't think he's good enough, but, you know, at least maybe put Jay and Fofana up front to cause a few problems, you know, with 20 minutes to go. And I think that's been I just don't think, this season, it's not been at us away from home necessarily. I think if you look at our away from home statistics, I actually think we're above the bottom three. But I'd have to look at it again. I think we could be below Sheffield United, you know, at home. I might be wrong with that.
In terms of points gained and goals scored? Conceded, sorry.
No, points acquired. So points acquired, you know, we're definitely second bottom. I'd have to check now because this wasn't something I was looking at researching. Our home form's been the issue. We've won 2 games at home all season. One was against Sheffield United and one was against Brentford, who had 10 men for best part of 90 minutes, and we only just limped over the line then. So for me, we're set up different away from home than at home. And away from home, we look more competitive overall. But at home, against the top half side, we've just been absolutely way off it. So I don't think it's a question of
what's the difference, Rich? What are you seeing that's the difference?
Well, to me, it's just quite obvious. He sets up where the team's just way higher. So it'd be really good to
trying
do
to be more positive
tactical analysis. So like that Newcastle game was doing the same again. Like our midfield was pressing so high. Like Brownhill was pressing from the like right fullback position. And then it's left us open in the middle, and you've got like Esteban O'Shea standing on the halfway line.
It's leaving yourself so exposed.
I know I'm going back again, but and it's similar. You know, it's so to me, if you look at it, it's not massively different, but we are just a little bit set up and a little bit more compact away from home. And there was times in the second half where we actually defended well. Yeah, we weren't keeping the ball, but we was in a nice shape and we was defending well, and we were more together. But like I said, away from, you know, at times we're just like pressing madly high up the pitch against these top players, you know, and they're just going to kill you. You know, the way I see it with Kompany's style of football is, if you've got the better players, I know this sounds really obvious, and I don't want to come across like I'm being obvious, but if you've got the better players, that style of football works.
Yeah.
Because you can get on the front foot, you can win the press against them, you can keep the ball. But when you have got worse players playing that style of football, you're just going to get killed and you're just going to get picked off. And that's why we've lost games so easily this season. When you're playing at any level of football, whether it's Premier League, Championship, or kind of like semi-pro that I've played, if you're playing against a better side, you've got to be more pragmatic. You've got to defend a little bit deeper, protect your box a little bit better against better teams, and pick your moments to attack. You know, target set pieces, look to counter-attack, grow into the game. And there's been too many times this season where we've been out of the game at half time and it's been game over.
Yeah.
So kind of like that's where I stand with that situation. And I don't think it's necessarily intensity at times. I think it's just a lack of plan B of if teams sit in against us, we just get counter-attacked. And if teams sit deep, we don't have enough quality to break them down. And we just end up passing the ball sideways.
So that's on the manager then, Tom. From everything that Rich has said here, this stubbornness, this ineffective ability to change things in game, and this absolute determination to stick with a system that he's convinced himself that if he gets 100 and odd hours training time with his squad, then it'll come through. This is on him.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's been a bit too much made in the sort of national media about him being rigid and not changing his style at all. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because I think we have changed from what we were doing at the start of the season. We have gone a bit more compact and a bit more realistic. But yeah, there's certain elements, and I think the one they highlighted on Match Today, which is the big one that stands out for me, is the playing out from the back, just doing it when it's on, doing it when it isn't on, doing it when we're 3-0 up, doing it when we're 3-0 down, doing it against better teams, doing it against worse teams. Like Richard said, the better teams are just stood there waiting to pick us off, and that's the one that stands out for me that hasn't really been compromised and should have. Some of the ones it showed on Match Today, some of the really frustrating points we've dropped. Wolves away is one that I'd forgotten about, but there was a poor game between two poor teams. Rodriguez misses a good chance when it's 0-0. We could have won it 1-0. We lost it 1-0 because we were playing out from the back. Everton, Brighton, these are games where we're just throwing points away, doing things like that.
Oh, frustrating.
And that is, I think that's the biggest kind of frustration this season, is if we'd have just said, look, or even if we'd have at the start of the season not signed Trafford and played Muric all season. And as I said, Muric hasn't been doing it well, and he's cost us as well, playing out from the back. But I think overall in the season we'd have more points if we'd had Muric doing it all season than Trafford, because I just don't think Trafford is good with the ball. And it's the same for O'Shea. Harwood Bellis, I think defensively might have struggled a little bit at this level, but he's a much better footballer than O'Shea. He's much better with the ball. So again, probably what you'd lose in is perhaps not quite as solid a player as O'Shea, but would we have played it out from the back a bit more successfully if we'd signed him as well? So there's that personnel and issue as well in terms of not adapting to this style, because I don't really understand some of these players who can't play out from the back. So yeah, the manager's got to take a big chunk of responsibility, I think, for this season. And at the minute, my kind of feeling on it is that I'm happy to give him the next season in the Championship, but I'd be really worried if we were to come back up that he'd just want to keep doing this again, because I think if he was really prepared to compromise it a bit more, we would have seen it halfway through the season instead of. And as I say, we have compromised, and there are certain things we have changed, but one thing that hasn't changed is playing out from the back. And it was so frustrating on Saturday. We just kept giving it away over and over, and we were lucky we weren't punished more. But it's the thing of, I wish we were a bit more adaptable, a bit more mixed. Even Man City, if there isn't a pass on, they can send it 40, 50 yards. And we used to do it last season when we had Teller on the shoulder, and they're trying to do it on Saturday with Brun Larson, and it's just not the same. He's not as quick. And obviously the fact that he's up against better defenders makes a difference as well. But that kind of plan B and that ability to mix it up hasn't been there for me this season.
I don't think it was there last season, Tom. I remember podcasts we did at the beginning of last season, and I think about 10 games in, I remember us analysing a game where it was around that time we were having all of those draws, and he finally brought Charlie Taylor on and went 5 at the back, and he saw the game out. We managed to keep and that was the start of our winning streak. But the vast majority of last season, I don't think he adapted either. I think he's very rigid in his approach, and there comes a point where that's admirable to an extent, because you're buying into a strategy and you're committing to it. But yeah, if it doesn't work, it really isn't. Rich, there's all sorts of opinions on Kompany at the moment, and I think I share Tom's view that, number one, I'm looking forward to him getting back in the Championship next season. He's dropping down a division that he's very clearly comfortable managing and coaching in. He's got the upper hand on the vast majority, if not all, of the coaches in that league. He should give us the whole season. He shouldn't go anywhere. Who knows whether he will, but he should be able to get us back up comfortably. I'm still predicting another Championship and another plus 100-point season, and I'm prepared to hang my my hat on that right now. What worries me about Kompany is he's going to drop a division. He's going to do all the same things he's done this season. It's going to work really well in the Championship. He's going to be buoyed by a Championship title. And that's going to reinforce his message that it's the system that works. He's just got to get his players to do it in the Premier League. And then we are back the same place we are now, but next year. So where are you with Kompany? Like, what's your feel with this?
First and foremost, it's a really interesting one. I put a couple of tweets out on Saturday night. I quoted an article from The Athletic about kind of like a few dressing room riffs.
I saw those.
Maybe not, obviously. It's speculation, and I got quite a lot of interesting responses. Some people agreed with what I said, some people disagree. One person was particularly rude, but that's social media these days.
Ignore them.
It?
Yeah, I just ignore them.
I don't mind on social media having a debate, but there's too many people who are just kind of like rude these days.
Yeah, it's like come at me with an opinion.
Where I'm at with Kompany is I'm really managed us this season. That's my honest answer. I'm really and a lot of people are kind of like, oh, Kompany's, we're in it for, we'll go back down, we'll go back up, and all this, and then we'll be better. And it's like, we've got a good chance of going up because there's so much crap in the Championship.
Yeah, we will go up. It's whether we're better when we come back up.
What we might do, I don't think we're guaranteed to. You can't guarantee anything in football. I think you're naive if you're doing that. And I think I'm annoyed because to me, he's treated this season like just a game of like Football Manager. Like it's a little bit of a project to him. Like, well, he's used that word project. It's a little bit of fun. And if we go down, it doesn't matter. And we didn't spend what we spent to get relegated.
100 million. No,
that was not part of the plan. As much as what they'll try and twist it and give propaganda and all that from the club, this season has been a complete and utter shambles.
Yeah,
it's been a shambles from start to finish. From the recruitment, from the pursuit of Teller, from all that nonsense, to where we've ended up.
Yeah.
For Mats and all that, not getting a left back in, and then where we've ended up now to be relegated. And let's not sugarcoat it. We've won 5 games all season.
Yeah, it's been abysmal. It
conceded
really has.
a lot of goals, not scored that many goals. We've made countless mistakes, as Tom said, they highlighted on Match of the Day. And yes, there's been minor. Tom said there's been changes. I think there's been tweaks. I don't think there's been enough changes.
I agree with
that. I think there's been
tweaks.
Slight tweaks, and we have got a bit better. And maybe but ultimately we'd have been relegated weeks ago if it wasn't for points deductions.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm. And I think I think because we're still a little bit closer to Forest, it masks that. It masks
how bad we've been. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Rich.
It just kind of like doesn't say just how bad we've been. So I'm annoyed with how this season's gone. And people on Twitter come on and say, "Oh, you're not a Burnley fan. You should be positive all the time." I'm annoyed.
No, that winds me up so much. Does that?
Probably be after my family, my close friends. Burnley's the thing that means the most to me in my life, and I'm really upset and annoyed with this season. Tom's probably a bit more of a calm person than me. Anyway, so Tom will like, take it in his stride, and that's fine. We're all different. I'm very passionate, and I'm annoyed with how this season's gone. It's not been good enough, and I worry that nobody in that boardroom, and especially Pace, nobody will be holding him up. Nobody will be holding that mirror up to him.
They're scared of annoying him. It's weird.
Whatever they are, yeah. And I don't think some of our fan base are like hold him up on this pedestal. Yeah. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, last season. So where I'm at with him, to sum up all that, is as an amazing as last season was, this season has been equally as disaster.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like 1-1, isn't it?
So true.
So for me, it's got the first 10, 15, got the first maybe all season next season, and then we go from there. My worry is that first day of pre-season when Kompany first joined. I know there wasn't too many players, but he'd give his big presentation about the club are going to move forward, and you can imagine there was such a positive feeling at the club. Now you're going to have Zaroury's going to come back into that dressing room. Roberts is going to come back into that dressing room. Benson's going to come back. Obviously, he's been there.
Why?
There's going to be some. There's going to be some unhappy people in that dressing. Oh yeah, there's going to be some unhappy players in that dressing room. who's going to come back in, and it's going to be a completely different environment how he's going to manage it. So that's
it's
what
going to
worries
have to
me.
lift them. It's not a case
Yeah,
of inspiring. It's going
and I
to have
hope
to
they can.
apologise.
All everybody wants who's a Burnley fan ultimately, and us three, because we care so much, is us to do well. I would love nothing more than us to get 120 points and not lose a game next year. And I think we are favourites to go up. And if I had to put go up or not go up, I would still say go up. But I just worry about his man management has worried me this year. And
Lost a bit
how
of
he's
his
treated
finesse,
and
I
how
think,
he's treated
Rich.
players. So I'm kind of like, I am a bit concerned. Sorry, go on.
I said he's lost a bit of his finesse.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it this season. There was times where he was just, haunch back in his seat. Remember a game we played Fulham at home, and and bless him for Fana, he come on and got 2. But at 2-0 down, Kompany was in his seat and he looked done to me.
Yeah,
he
I
looked
remember you
done.
saying.
We were poor, and I sit in the James argues, and he looked done, and we got one back, and all of a sudden he was back up again. And I think Tom echoes my point. If Kompany had come out, finally after we got relegated, said, you know what, we've not been good enough. I've not been good enough. We've not got it wrong. We're gonna, we've got this and that, but we're gonna work hard. I go, do you know what? He's finally being real. But from what I see from Kompany, it's just a load of media-driven drivel game after game. There's no realness to what he says, and that's what. And I know he's been brought up in a time where you can't say too much to the media. I get that, but just been times I'm like, just give me a little bit more nonsense instead of the regular high performance podcast nonsense that people want you to hear.
Yeah. Stop giving us sound bites that will go on all of the content.
Yeah,
give us the truth.
And it looks great for social media. So that's where I'm at with him. I'll fully back him and a little bit of a break. And I'm looking for, I'm just ready for a break at this point.
I think we all are.
It's been hard. I found it hard to watch this season. The football.
It's been hard to watch. It's been hard to analyse. We've all struggled in terms of the show. At times it's been felt like we've recorded the same show week in, week out. Like, what do we say?
That's what it is
this week,
because it's the same mistakes week in, week out.
Same players, same criticisms of Kompany. No, I completely agree, Rich. Tom finishes off then towards the end of the podcast. We are coming to the end of this week's show. What are your hopes and expectations? What are your hopes versus your expectations for next season, or are they actually the same?
I think it's hard to say what I'd expect without knowing what the team's going to be. It's really hard to know. I think we are going to have to sell players just because of the financial situation, but how many do we sell? How much of that can you then reinvest? But having said that, the way the season's gone, you'd think really it's such an opportunity wasted that you would kind of have to expect promotion back in a sense that, most clubs would accept him at this for what he's done this season and how badly it's gone. But then it feels a bit other. It's difficult to say expectations at this stage. Maybe ask me again at the start of the season. Hopes, I would say it's not a strong league. I think the teams who've come up will be good, but they won't be as good as Ipswich have been this season.
Nope.
I think you'd imagine Southampton and Leeds will probably have to sell a few, whichever one doesn't go up, even if neither of them go up. I won't be too worried about Norwich, or maybe we'll be about West Brom. But ultimately, I think with the teams in that league, we should be capable of finishing top 2, or at the very least. So I'm hopeful that we will do that, and I think, as Richard said earlier, the style Kompany plays against better teams we look worse, but against worse teams we look better. I think we saw that last season. We controlled a lot of games, and I think there's no reason why we wouldn't have that same aura where there'd be a lot of teams who just stick down the ball and just try.
There's a lot of rubbish in the Championship. There is a lot of rubbish.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily as bad as people make out, but at the same time, I think even if we can keep a good 2/3 of this squad together, we should have too much for that league. And as much as we've criticised Kompany this season, we were giving him a lot of praise for what he did in the Championship, and rightly so. So hopefully, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm expecting all of the fringe players like Obafemi, Mike Trezor, players like that who have just not been an impact at all to go and free up some. I don't expect Roberts will come back. I think he'll go. I think we'll get Twine back. Zaruri and Benson are an interesting one from a man management perspective. I'm expecting us to sell maybe 4. I think we'll lose Sander Berge, Foster, Amdouni. Koleosho's an interesting one because he's been injured, but we'll see where that goes. And like you say, we're going to have a whole new season again. Another point for the podcast, it goes to our comments that this 5-year project only works if you don't press a reset button every season with a brand new squad that take 100 hours of training to settle in with each other. So who knows? Listeners, we're going to wrap it up there. We will be back next week. We're going to carry on this analysis of the season and reaction to relegation to the Championship for the Clarets. I hope you're all feeling okay. It's not the end of this journey. We have been here before many times. We will be here again. And as long as the Clarets have their family behind them, with their fans cheering them on, we will get to where we need to be. Dave and I will be back on Friday for the final preview show of the season. Looking forward to that thoroughly miserable game at home to Notts Forest at the weekend. And then just keep your eyes peeled over the summer. We'll do a final wrap-up show next week with the team. And then we're going to split up some analysis for the rest of the summer and keep your podcast feed going. My thanks go to everybody who has contributed to making this podcast, to my colleagues, Tom and Rich, for joining me this evening in the studio. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the None and Never podcast. Until next time.
The None and Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonanever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.